So one thing that I love about the the ads that Harmon Brothers creates is that you guys, I mean, it's like a trademark quality of all of your ads that humor is very much front and center, right? I read the comments. I'm like one of those weird people, probably because I'm a marketer. I love seeing people's feedback to ad creatives because I get some, interesting tidbits of information. And I have to say, every single time I've ever come across a Harmon Brothers produced ad, the comments are overwhelmingly positive and people genuinely say, I stop and watch the full commercial every single time just because it brings me joy, even if they may not even be a customer. So I would love to know how you guys utilize humor as an actual sales strategy, and why did you decide that video marketing was the best medium to deliver that through?
Great question. Let me actually zoom out just a little bit to answer that question. Then I can zoom back in.
Okay.
If you go back all the way back to our roots, I think there's like this moment in time that perfectly describes like our genesis, and that actually precedes my time at Harmon Brothers. So when my partner Jeffrey Harmon was trying to make an advertisement for that aura brush, the tongue brush that I mentioned earlier, he came up with this ad that was 2.5 minutes long. And keep in mind, this was right after Google had just bought YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point in time, you had these television spots where you could buy ad space for like 30 seconds or 60 seconds, or you had these infomercial spots where it was like 20 to 30 minutes. But at that time, a 2.5 minute ad was like unheard of. It was just this odd duck, like, where are
Where
you
does
going to
that
put
fit?
that?
Right.
Yeah, it just didn't fit. But Jeff was convinced that it was the right length. He's like, I don't need to fill it full of fluff to extend it out into an infomercial, but I can't shorten it up any further because to really properly convey the value here, I need 2.5 minutes. And so he reached out to the YouTube team, who at that point, they were still, in startup mode. They were trying to figure out, okay, we have this like viral video platform. How do we turn it into an advertising platform that's valuable to businesses? And so Jeffrey reached out to them and said, hey, can you give me a skip button so that the people who want to watch my ad can, and the people who don't want to can just skip it? And YouTube was like, sure, we'll give it a try, see if it works. And so, of course, they went and built the skip ad button. This was originally just for, this Aura Brush ad. And at that time, I don't think anyone quite wrapped their heads around what a big deal that was. But now here we are, what's it been? It's been like 15 years or something like that. And looking back, I think it was probably one of the most impactful innovations to happen to the advertising industry in a long time,
Yeah.
because it shifted power from the advertisers, who prior to this could just kind of make whatever crap they wanted to and then just force feed it to a captive audience. But it shifted power from them to the viewers. And now it forces advertisers to think, okay, I actually have to make something that the viewers want, something that they'll enjoy, something that adds value. I need to give them something that's so good that they'll talk about it with their friends. They'll talk about it at the dinner table. And that was like the genesis moment of everything we've ever done since then. And so every time we go into, the creative process of building an ad, we're not going in and asking ourselves like, all right, how do we extract the maximum of value from, from each viewer? Instead, we're kind of taking the opposite approach and saying, how do we add value? How do we put a smile on their face? How do we give them something to talk about, something to share, something to comment, something to make their day better, right? And that is like at the very core of who we are and everything that we do. And so coming back to your question of humor, we don't have to use humor. We've done some ads that are non-comedic, and they work fantastically. It just so happens that humor is probably the best tool on earth for putting a smile on people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
And humor probably is the most shareable content on the internet. When you think about things that get shared, sometimes controversial things get shared. Sometimes fear-based messages get shared. Gal, think about the last, year and a half of pandemic life online, how much fear and controversy and stuff is out there. Like, obviously it's shareable,
Yeah.
but if you think about it, every time you share something that's fear-based or controversy-based, there's a really good chance that either you're going to alienate half of, your circle, or you're going to be, that guy, so to speak, is like, oh,
Yeah.
here goes Debbie Downer or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas humor is the exact opposite. It's like, humor, you're not going to alienate half of your crowd. You're not going to drag them down. You're actually making their day better. And so that's why we just keep coming back to humor over and over again, because it's just such a phenomenal tool for adding value to people's lives. And at the end of the day, that's the core of who we are and what we're trying to do with every one of these pieces. And it all goes back to like that genesis moment of like, let's shift power from the advertiser to the viewer.
My mind is blown. I don't know if you're like used to telling that story, or if this was like the first time in a while that you've shared that story, but I had no idea that he was responsible for the essentially responsible for the skip button on YouTube. Like, I didn't know the origination of that feature. And I think we can all thank him for the fact that we do have that ability. Cause I mean, that would suck on YouTube if you had to watch every single advertisement that came through your way. So that's mind blowing to me. I think that's such a cool origination story. And I think your explanation of how it shifted that power dynamic from the business or whoever was putting up that advertisement to the audience is so relevant. And I think also just something I pulled from your explanation of why you love humor and how you utilize that in your strategy. I think what I'm hearing is humor or anything, with a positive, uplifting message, it kind of creates community, right? Rather than, like you said, conflict. And so I think that creating that like bond around something that people love or want to talk about, like you said, with their friends and family, I see why that plays into the effectiveness of your ads and your sales strategies. Obviously,
yeah. One quick note, Helen. I think I'm sure if we pulled Jeff into the room and asked him about that skip ad experience, I'm sure he would acknowledge people at the YouTube team and other people on the Orabrush team who kind of contributed to the ideation there. And so it's probably important to give a shout out to, behind every great idea is usually a team and a collaborative effort. And so I don't want to make it sound like Jeff was the only genius there, but he definitely played a very important role in that innovation, and that innovation was very impactful.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jeff, for your helping hand in that. And I think that's also just really indicative of like your quality of leadership, Benton. I love how you always bring it back to what is the collective, like what are you guys as a team doing, leading with your core values, leading with, what feels in alignment with you guys, which I think is just awesome. That passion drives everything that you do.